You're listening to The Back 40, the podcast for Ontario farmers, covering topics and issues that matter most to Ontario agriculture. Brought to you by Trillium Mutual Insurance, bringing the ag community together one podcast at a time. I'm the host of The Back 40, Mike Bryan, agribusiness specialist at Trillium Mutual Insurance. Over the past number of years, the grocery industry has become more and more concentrated to the point where we actually have very few different stores that are actually supplying us with our food. Most communities will know that there's a Walmart there may be a Loblaws or a Foodland, but very rarely anymore do you see any independent grocers. Well, it's a good thing to note they are not totally gone. And today we're going to be talking with Jackie Fraser from Fraberts Foods in Fergus. And we're going to talk a little bit about what it's like to compete with the big boys in the grocery industry. Jackie, welcome to the Back 40.
Thanks so much.
So let's dive right into it there. What's your store like?
I like the intro you gave there. There are still a few of us brave souls here. The independent grocer is not dead. There are a few of us brave souls out here. We try to be everything that you aren't going to get in the large retailers and the big box stores. We try to provide a real sense of community in our store, a real connection. We know many of our customers on a first name basis, and they know us. As a family-run grocery store, they've watched our family grow from the beginning. Derek and I, my husband and I, we own the business together. The name Fraberts comes from, my last name is Fraser. My husband's last name is Roberts, so that's where the Fraberts comes from. And we literally opened our doors weeks before we had our first child. So we opened our doors in May of 2008, and Charlotte was born at the beginning of June. So our customers have watched our family grow. So we've really created that family atmosphere in the store that our customers really enjoy.
So what drove you to, or gave you the idea to start up a local food mart?
Well, I grew up in a little town called Huttonville. If you look for it on a map, you won't be able to find it anymore. It has been smothered by Brampton, but it was a really lovely market garden area. We had amazing fruit and vegetable farms, apple orchards, strawberry fields all around that area. And so I grew up on a dairy farm right in that area and kind of thought maybe I didn't really want to get up at 4:30 in the morning and milk cows. So I thought I'm going to go get a job at the fruit and vegetable farm down the way, and I won't have to get up that early. That backfired for me because as I was trained to go to the food terminal, I was getting up at 3:30 in the morning to go to the food terminal. So that totally backfired.
That didn't maybe be the best idea of the whole thing if you didn't want to get up in the morning.
No, as it turns out, I'm a morning person anyway. Dairy farmer's daughter, you can't ever get that out of you. But that's kind of where I went. I ended up at a local fruit and vegetable farm in their market, and I just fell in love with that whole idea. I loved working out in the fields. I loved the pick your own operation and really fell in love with going to the food terminal. So I went on, like any good farm girl, I went on to the University of Guelph, got my Aggie jacket, took agriculture science. I even went on and did a master's degree. I had some incredible jobs once I graduated. Had a great career, did use my degree to its fullest. But always in the back of my head, I remembered my favorite job was when I was 16 and going to the food terminal. So enter Derek, my husband. We were married back in 2006, and he's a chef. And I thought, there's something we can maybe do. My passion for local food, his ability to do magical things with food, being a chef. I thought there was something there that we could do. Now, we had just recently moved to Fergus, and at that time, there was no farmer's market and there were no independent shops. There was nowhere to go and get Ontario strawberries in June, for example. And I thought, I think there's a bit of a void here we can fill. We sat down and kind of back of a napkin, threw together a bit of a business plan and fleshed it out. And the rest is history, I guess, as they say.
So what sort of products do you offer in your store? Obviously, as an independent grocer, many of the same things that you can get at a large store are going to be available with you, but there's some unique items that you offer as well.
Yeah, our main focus is local. So local produce when it's in season, as well as local meat and local dairy products. A lot of those sort of artisanal made products like jams and jellies and things that folks make that you're not going to find in a big box store. So we really try to keep our focus on those items. But we do sell a lot of different dry goods and other things just for the convenience factor for folks, that are shopping in our store. And especially during the pandemic, that was when we did start bringing in a lot of products that we didn't sell previously. We attracted a lot of shoppers into our store during the pandemic because they felt safer in a smaller store. So that led us to bringing in more things so it could be a bit more of a one-stop shop for them. But we really try to stay focused on local, and fresh as our primary products. It really is what sets us apart from the big box stores. We're never going to compete with the big box stores on craft dinner and Fruit Loops, for example. So we try to focus on those products that they can't get elsewhere.
So you have an agricultural background, and particularly in the market gardening. Derek does not. This is a partnership between the two of you. What's his role?
That's always my famous line I like to whenever I'm speaking to groups. When you come to Fraberts Fresh Food, you're not just getting the product, you also can get information. So if you want to know how the food got to the store, you can ask Jackie, the farm girl. I can tell you about dairy farming. I can tell you about pesticide use and fruits and vegetables. I can tell you all about the production side, how that food got to the store, which a lot of people are very interested in right now. And then you go to Chef Derek and ask him about what to do with that food once they take it home. And as I said, you don't want to mix this up because I have no business in the kitchen. That's why I married a chef. And Derek grew up in Timmins, so he doesn't know a lot about agriculture. So we do provide that information, both right from field to fork, literally between the two of us.
And you provide some fresh goods, some fresh baked goods, and some freshly prepared food as well, don't you?
That's right. We have ready-made meals, soups, stews, curries, lasagnas, that kind of thing that they make back in the kitchen and we have on the shelf. So it's the kind of things that busy families can pick up and just heat and eat. So you come and you grab a lasagna, throw it in the oven, and away you go. And also we have a full service deli as well. We do pizzas and sandwiches to go, and that's become very popular over the past few years. So yeah, we sort of keep expanding, building on those sort of strengths with the local food. Again, always having a connection to local and fresh.
In my area, I've got two stores. I've got a Foodland and I've got an independent grocer, not to be confused with an independent grocery store like you have yourself. That the independent grocer, of course, is a Loblaws brand. What's it like to compete against somebody like that? They offer a tremendous selection of products, not very much local often, but a tremendous selection of products at a really good price. So how do you compete with somebody like that?
That's a great question. We quickly, right off the top when we opened, we were honest with ourselves and knew we were never going to be able to compete on price. We just don't have the economies of scale. We don't have the distribution channels they have. They get the same products we can get for much cheaper than we can just because of volumes. And again, without the economy of scale, we just couldn't have the same sort of margins they did. So that's why we've always been really careful to make sure that we have unique things that people can't get at the big box stores. And we're also super mindful of making sure that the experience adds value. So our customers know that when they come, as I mentioned before, they can get more than just the product. They're going to get all kinds of information. We provide a lovely shopping experience. We're not, you don't have to walk through acres of, clothing and Tupperware to get to the milk, for example. So it's that quick sort of, you can stop, you can be in and out of our store, in minutes, and have a really nice experience. You're not sort of standing in line and thought of as a number. We recognize people, call them up by name, chit chat, that kind of thing. So it's a matter of making sure that we provide that value in both the experience and the information that goes with the product. And then, of course, the product itself has to be top notch. So yeah, are we selling icing sugar? It's the same icing sugar you're going to get anywhere else. But then we have the fresh peaches from Niagara, or we've got the best chicken breasts you can get in town that we get from Abate Packing in Arthur. So really making sure we have the products that set us apart as well as the experience and the information.
It goes back a few years to think about this, but you're really selling on relationships as much as anything. You've got repeat customers. You said many of them, you'll know their names and they certainly know who you are. That reminds me of the corner store that you used to see in small villages, that really there aren't very many of those left anymore. They just haven't been able to compete.
I remember growing up, my friend being able to go and buy smokes for her mom because, of course, the guy at the corner store knew it wasn't for her, it was for her mom.
Absolutely.
That's a terrible example, but it's one of those, having that small town feel or that sort of connection is something that we really rely on. And yeah, it's, I kind of alluded to this at the beginning. We first opened, we had our first daughter and she grew up in the store. So we plunk her in I call it the circle of neglect. It's one of those extra saucer things. The customers would come in, oh, Charlotte, and they'd be doting over her and I'd be carrying the basket and helping them do their shopping. It's just that real feel, that small town feel, that local feel. People leave our store smiling. They come in smiling. We hope it's not sort of a to do. It's not a, go out and get this cart full of groceries and this drudgery. It's trying to make grocery shopping enjoyable again.
From my own personal experience, my mom worked at one of those corner stores in a little place called Kirkton, and you still can find it on the map there. But she worked there for many years. And of course, she knew all the people. And you talk about the kids coming in to buy the package of cigarettes for their parents. And then the ones that come in, it's like, no, your parents don't smoke. We know that. So we're not selling them to you. So there's that personal touch that you just don't get in those large stores.
That's right. The ready-made meals and that kind of thing. We do a lot of gift baskets. That's kind of an angle I don't talk about a lot, but we do quite a few gift baskets. Obviously a ton at Christmas, but we do quite a few all throughout the year. Sadly, we do a lot of bereavement baskets as well, but we'll get a customer, they'll come in and say, oh, you know, this family, do you remember what they like to eat? And often we do. And again, that's a personal touch. We can put together a gift basket. I know Fred really likes this lasagna, and I know Jane loves the chicken curry. So we know what to put in the basket and make it personal. There really still is a place, I think, for the personalized, independent, maybe not even just grocer, but shop. I mean, I think of our local, we still have an independent bookshop in town, which, Derek, I'm an avid reader, and Derek just has to go in and say, okay, Jackie's birthday's coming up. What does she want? And Roxanne and now the next owner knows what to give them. So there really still is a place for that personalized approach, I think.
So your specialty is local food, local fresh food, obviously, that people know where it comes from. So what all sorts of products do you get? We're getting into the time frame here now where a lot of that fresh produce is not going to be as available there. But in season, what sort of local products do you supply there?
This is a tough time of year for us to be that different, to differentiate from the big box stores. Obviously, local meat is year round, local dairy is year round, but the local produce really it's a big deal. It's a big attraction. We sell a ton of local asparagus, and then strawberries begin. And so those are two really big ones that drive people to find local. People don't get as excited, let's say, about local romaine lettuce. It's not something that people are pounding the door down for, but they do for things like asparagus, strawberries. We do have some local farmers that people know of them and know they shop at our store specifically to get their items. So we have a fella near Elmira who grows hothouse tomatoes, Flora Lane Produce, and they are just fantastic tomatoes. We have them year round. So people know they can come to our store and get Stewart's tomatoes all year round, the best tomatoes this side of August. We have another local organic farm, Salad Days, who just produce the most amazing salad mix. Who gets excited about salad mix? But this stuff is amazing, and we just sell cases of it. So there are some very specific examples of farmers in this area that are well known for what they grow, and they will come to us specifically. We're very lucky. It makes our job easy to have those farmers in the area and be able to be their retail partner.
Now, you mentioned this time of year, of course, some of the stuff gets pretty scarce. So I would assume that means you're still getting up at 3:00 in the morning and heading down to the food terminal. Tell us a little bit about that experience, because I'm sure many of our listeners don't even know what exactly you're talking about. What's it like down there?
It's called the Ontario Food Terminal. It's located in Etobicoke. It's a wholesale location for produce, and it's quite a unique kind of operation. It is what's the largest in Canada, and I believe the third largest in North America of its kind. I think we're just behind New York City and Los Angeles. About half of it is what we call the farmers market. So it's the outdoor farmers market. It's all Ontario grown produce. And then there's what we call the docks. And that's where there's about 20 or 24 warehouses in there that bring in produce from all over the world. So it's wonderful for people for independent shops like me, because it's a one-stop shop. So I can go down there at 3:30 in the morning. It's great. There's no traffic at that time. I highly recommend, if you ever have to drive to Toronto, 4 in the morning is the time to do it. Get down there. I can go around and get my local strawberries, get my local asparagus. So it's really convenient. I often credit the food terminal as being probably one of the reasons why we do still have some independent shops in Ontario, because it does give us a bit of a level playing field with the big guys. So we can get produce at prices similar to what the big companies are paying. So it gives us a bit of a level playing field. And it allows our Ontario farmers, it gives them a wonderful spot to sell their products wholesale. I wouldn't have time to be driving all over Ontario. I can drive down to Leamington to get my hothouse cucumbers, and then head down to Norfolk for the asparagus, and then up to Sudbury for the wild blueberries. I can get all of that stuff in one spot. It's a really unique experience. If you ever get a chance to go, I advise any of your listeners to go. It's a pretty unique place.
Do you like what you're hearing from the Back 40? We'd like to hear from you. Send us an email with your comments and thoughts to theback40@trilliummutual.com or follow us on social media @Trillium Mutual. Now, I'm assuming it's pretty much male dominated. What's it like to be a woman to walk in a place like that where you do have a lot of men that are really aggressively bargaining, shall we say?
I'm glad you bring that up. It's interesting. I used to work in the aggregate industry, sand and gravel. So you would think that that's a pretty male dominated industry, but surprisingly, there were a lot of women that I worked with in that industry. I worked in agriculture. I worked in a lot of other industries that you would have assumed were more male dominated. I've never seen anything like the food terminal for lack of female representation. There are, I think at last count, there's 4 of us now, 4 female buyers that I know of. As far as how many buyers there are, there's probably 1,000 buyers, maybe more. So 4 of us are female. The salespeople, I can maybe count on one hand how many female salespeople I've met with down there. It is incredibly male dominated. I guess if I had not worked in other fields with men quite frequently, I would have found that intimidating. I'm sure it is intimidating for some women. One thing I do like, it's a place where chivalry has not died. So people are super helpful. I mean, when I started going down there as an adult, I started going down pregnant. I was very, very pregnant in the beginning. So men were very helpful in loading my van and helping and things like that. So that was quite sweet. It's interesting. I don't know why it's sort of remained such a male-dominated industry. It's the terrible hours, probably.
Part of it, but also too. I mean, and you'll know this for yourself. It'd be a very intimidating place to walk into, and you're the only female in the area.
Language is very colorful. It's not for the thin eardrums. It's probably just not everybody's cup of tea. Of course, when I went when I was 16, I thought it was the coolest place on earth. And I just loved all of that. Activity and craziness and chaos. And now even I just turned 50, I am still enjoying the chaos and the craziness.
So you faced a few challenges over the years with Fraberts. My brother lives in Fergus, so I'm a little bit familiar with what they've been doing there. I think you've got, 3 bridges over the river, and over the past, 10 years, they've rebuilt 2 of them. How's that affected your business?
It's a beautiful downtown. If you ever get the chance to come to downtown Fergus, I encourage your listeners to do so. It's beautiful. With the Grand River going right through downtown. One of the beautiful things about having a river going through your downtown means bridges. And we had been open for 10 years and had to already go through 2 bridge closures in our first 10 years of business. So I was quite naive about what the impacts of the infrastructure projects are on retail. It's absolutely devastating, especially for a business like ours that requires customers to come at least once a week, if not several times a week. We have a Walmart, we have a Freshco, we have a Zayres. Those 3 stores literally ring the downtown. So it didn't matter what side of Fergus you lived on, there was a big box store that was a lot easier to get to than Fraberts Fresh Foods in downtown Fergus. So the impacts were devastating. We survived the first bridge closure. And then it takes a while. It's, the whole habit building, right? So you get them out of the habit of coming. It takes a whole year to get them back into the habit of coming. And then 5 years later, bang, the next bridge went out. And so we were just recovering from that and thinking, how are we going to recover from this again? And thinking, oh dear, there is a 3rd bridge. It is kind of outside of town and it is going to get done sooner or later, but hoping we would get our feet under us before that one went out. And, then of course, the pandemic hit and we thought that would be it for us. I remember being on the phone with my mom and being in tears thinking, this is it. This will be the final straw. We've worked really hard to try and build this, and 2 bridges in a pandemic and we are done. Thankfully, I was very wrong about the pandemic. Turns out a small grocery store is the one business you want to be in during a pandemic. After the challenges came the opportunity. And since March of 2020, we haven't looked back. Our sales literally doubled overnight, and it's been amazing. The main reason we attribute it to is, and I think I kind of talked about this a little bit in the beginning when we were talking about product mix, but customers, they felt safer in our store. So of course, our regulars continued to come, but we saw all kinds of new faces, people we'd never seen before. They didn't want to stand in line at one of the big box stores. They didn't feel all that safe there. Whereas in a small store where we had things spaced out and social distancing and all that stuff in place, they felt a lot safer there. And that really benefited us. We honestly did not see that coming at all.
I know March 13th was my last day in the office before we were sent home, for a few weeks. And I still record this from home. So I'm still at home. My wife and I always go shopping together on the Saturday, and we walked into the store. And for the first time in my life, there were empty store shelves. And I mean, not just a few. There was no dairy, there was no eggs, there was very little meat, of course, no canned products, and naturally, the toilet paper was all gone. What was it like for you to try and keep product on your shelves at that time?
Oh, it was unbelievable. Yeah, I remember when this was going to be a 2 week thing. Oh my goodness. In the beginning, it was so we didn't sell toilet paper, so we didn't have to put up with that. In the beginning, it was breakfast items. So all of a sudden, everybody was eating breakfast at home. Nobody ate breakfast at home. You got breakfast on the way to the office. So all of a sudden, everybody's trapped at home and they're eating breakfast. So it was bananas, eggs, like you say, dairy, yogurt, all those breakfast items. I thought, what is going on? We would sell 4 cases of bananas a week in pre-pandemic, and we were selling 20 cases. And the yogurt we couldn't keep in stock. Eggs, we were buying eggs from everybody we could find to try and keep eggs on the shelf. So that was eye-opening, and we kind of worked through that. And then the pandemic baking craze began, and that I still to this day scratch my head. But I guess everybody's home and they're bored, so they decide they need to start baking. So flour, we couldn't keep flour on the shelf. There wasn't yeast for miles around.
No,
And
nobody had any. I
nobody
remember
had
we
yeast.
were looking for it, and we finally got it in 1 pound containers.
Yeah.
And that was all that was available.
And that's what we brought in the 1 pound containers. And I thought, should I break these into packets? No, we just sold them by the pound and people were buying them. And some of our regulars were like, well, I've always been baking. They were annoyed that all these new bakers were taking the product off our shelves. But we had people driving from as far as Kitchener, Guelph. They were phoning in first. Do you have any yeast? It was insane. And that's when we started a whole baking section. So, icing sugar, cocoa, all that stuff we started bringing in, things we'd never sold before. So that was sort of the next step. It was whack-a-mole. You were just racing around trying to get product on the shelves as quickly as possible. The food terminal, we just talked about that. It's the kind of place where you used to go. You'd park your van, you'd walk around, do your shopping. Well, now you had to pull in and you weren't allowed to leave your van. So you drove up to the gates, checked your temperature on the way in, you answered all the questions, came in, and you have to order everything. So you call all your salespeople, order what you needed, and they just delivered to the van. You weren't even allowed to get out of the van. And so that created chaos because, again, produce is a very visual buying experience. I like to walk around and see who's got the nicest romaine lettuce, who's got the best looking lemons or whatever. And I couldn't do that anymore. So I was just kind of calling and trying to grab stuff as I could. And that was for, I would say, a good 6 to 8 months at the beginning, just a lot of chaos throughout the supply chain and trying to guess what the next sort of toilet paper was going to be.
So with challenges comes opportunities. Would you say it's been a good year or two since then?
100%. We have learned so much. We have gained so much. We have an online shop now, as well as we offer delivery through a third-party delivery agent. So those are things we did not do pre-pandemic. I mean, curbside, as you know, became the big thing, the big buzzword. And so in the early days, our curbside was people phoning us and just giving us a list and their Visa number and us running around and putting everything in a bag and running it through their Visa and then meeting them at the door. I remember because it was right before Easter, we were trying to do this curbside thing and we were frantically trying to get the online shop up and running, but all we had was the phone for that period of time. And at one point we had 27 voicemails. And by the time I listened to those 27 voicemails, I had 7 new voicemails. And we were trying to do this online ordering over the phone. And you'd get people that were like, well, Fred, can you check? Do we have any milk? And, I don't know if I need this. Okay, I got to get my purse. And, I can't find my reading glasses. And you're like, oh my gosh, I need this to be a 2-minute phone call, not a 10-minute phone call. So we were so happy when we finally got the online system up running. We have a lot of customers that aren't maybe too internet savvy. So we had an email. So just send us an email. That's fine. Please don't put your Visa in the email. We'll call you to get the Visa number after. But so now all those things are in place. We still have some people using the curbside because now they find it convenient. That's good. We still have the online shop. But of course, at the end of the day, we still want bodies in our store. I mean, again, back to the whole reason why we're here is, to create that fun shopping experience where we have interaction and all that. We don't want to lose that. So we are really happy to have people back in the store. But, throughout the pandemic, it was important to have those things in place and we're set up in case there's ever another one, I guess. I joke that I'm going to write a book someday, how a pandemic saved my business. And it really did.
And you talk about the curbside and the email. It's hard to build a relationship through an email, though. And you really have built your business on relationships. Yes. So as you say, it's key to get people back into the stores again or into your store again. What do you see coming down the pipe? What do you see in the future for Fraberts Fresh Foods?
A great question. We've been doing a lot of thinking because we do feel like, hopefully, I'm sure we're all hoping that this is the end of the pandemic. We do need to think what is our next step. And I guess it's tough. I think we're still kind of recovering from all the franticness of all the pivoting we had to do to get through the pandemic. We will never stray from our core business, which is local. That's what we're passionate about. It's what sets us apart. It's been a trend. Trends don't last forever, but I really hope that our customers that have grown used to getting good quality local produce and local meat will stay hooked on it. They'll realize they never want to go back to eating products that just don't have the same flavor, the same background, the same story as local does. So that's our hope. Going forward, obviously, I didn't talk. We do have a catering division that obviously was devastated by the pandemic. So I do see that that part will come back again. I don't see us letting go of some of the new products we brought in to help out during the pandemic, but we'll make sure that we continue to focus on local and creating that really great customer experience. That's really what we need to continue to work on. I mean, that's the secret to our success, I think, and we need to really make sure we never lose focus of that.
Yeah, and the very thing that you talked about with the bridges being out, it takes that year for people to get back into the habit of coming downtown to your store should work in your favor this time, right? Because you know what? You're in the habit of going there. It's been a great experience. We've enjoyed it. We came there because it's safer, but there's really no reason to go anywhere else because it's such a great experience.
Exactly. Like I really hope that everybody that found us during the pandemic will continue with us. And so far, so good. So far, I think we're seeing that. Fergus is really growing very rapidly too. And that's a huge opportunity for us. We're a very fast growing community and making sure that all those newcomers find us. That's definitely going to be a focus for us. Often those people that have moved here maybe don't work here in town. They might work in Mississauga or towards Toronto. So making sure that they do their shopping while they're home instead of maybe while they're at work. Again, back to the pandemic, that's what helped us is people weren't commuting and so weren't doing their grocery shopping in Milton or Mississauga. They were doing it here in Fergus. Making sure we reach out to those new people will be a big focus for sure.
So I often ask this question of people, and you can tell your passion for your business and for what you do and how important it is. But what is it about this business that really drives you? Why is this such a passion for you?
I think I have said I did start out with just being really passionate about local produce, supporting local farmers. So that's really what began for me. For my husband, he's just passionate about creating wonderful meal options. So those two passions really rooted in how we began and we love what we do. I think one thing that changed now that we have opened and I didn't sort of anticipate is I love being such an integral part of this community. We were both new to Fergus. Like I mentioned, Derek's from Timmins. I'm from long lost Huttonville. We have fallen in love with Fergus. We just love it here. It's a great place to raise our kids. It's an active, vibrant downtown. When the pandemic's over, we will have our festivals again. We have a great Scottish festival here in town. We have Riverfest in Elora. There's always something going on in this area. It's a very vibrant area, and we've grown to love the people. A grocery store is just such a great kind of microcosm of the community because everybody comes for their celebrations. We cater people's weddings. We are part of their Christmas, their Thanksgiving, and their Easter celebration. We have the same people come and get turkeys from us for all three of those holidays. And we have those same customers coming back for those things. So being part of those family celebrations, being part of just really, we're in their kitchen, literally. Having those conversations, they've watched my kids grow up. I've watched, some of their kids grow up. I have a customer, I was the first person to know she was pregnant because she was worried about what she could eat when she was pregnant. And her daughter was in the other day and wished me a happy birthday because she's 8. And I thought, oh my gosh, now I feel old. I really didn't expect that to touch me as much. Just being part of this community and feeding them. We really get a kick out of that.
It's all about being part of the fabric of the community, as you said, and it really is all about that personal touch that you provide in Fraberts Fresh Foods. So for those people that are listening that don't know where to find Fraberts, where are you located and how can they find you online?
Excellent. So come to beautiful downtown Fergus. If anybody's been to Fergus before, you might remember the old Fergus Market that was quite famous back in the day, the Fergus Market. we're actually in that building, in the old Fergus Marketplace building, 105 Queen Street West, just on the south side of the Grand River. And online, you can find us at frabertsfreshfood.com. And we also pretty active Facebook page and getting a little better at Instagram. We're kind of new to that, but our Facebook page is quite active. And like I say, come in and say hi anytime. We just love to meet with people and talk about our business and talk about our products. We're proud of everything we have on our shelves, and we love to talk about it.
We've been talking with Jackie Fraser from Fraberts Fresh Foods in Fergus. Jackie, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Mike. This has been great. I hope everybody has a great day.
You've been listening to The Back 40, brought to you by Trillium Mutual Insurance. Join us next time when we'll be talking about food traceability with Rory O'Sullivan from Grain Discovery. Be sure to subscribe to The Back 40 wherever you find your favorite podcasts so that you don't miss an episode. The Back 40, bringing the ag community together one podcast at a time. I'm Mike Brine. Until next time, take care and stay safe.